Hey there, it's me Eden. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to my channel and visit my Patreon page for early access, link in the description. The process began with a flash of light so intense it felt like it burned through my soul. I was weightless, suspended in a void of swirling colors and shapes that defied comprehension. The voices of Dr. Larson and his team faded, replaced by a deep, resonant hum that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. And then, I saw them, Alex and Alexis, standing on opposite sides of the void. Alex looked tired, his shoulders slumped under the weight of years of self-doubt and denial. Alexis stood tall, her presence radiant and unyielding, yet tinged with sadness. "You've come far," Alex said, his voice tinged with weary acceptance. "But now you must finish," Alexis added, her tone both firm and compassionate. I looked between them, my heart aching. "I can't choose," I said, tears streaming down my face. "You're both me." "Then don't choose," Alex said, stepping closer. "Embrace us," Alexis added, holding out her hand. I hesitated for a moment, then reached out, taking both their hands. The void around us pulsed, the colors intensifying as Alex and Alexis began to merge. Their forms blurred, their features blending, until I was left holding only light. The light enveloped me, searing and soothing all at once. I felt a rush of memories, both Alex's and Alexis's, flooding my mind, their joys and pains intertwining. And then, there was silence. When I awoke, I was back in the chamber. The hatch opened, and Harriet's face was the first thing I saw. "Alex?" she asked, her voice trembling. I sat up slowly, the weight of what had happened settling over me. "I'm here," I said. But as I spoke, I realized something had changed. My voice, my body, it wasn't just Alex or Alexis. It was both. Harriet helped me out of the chamber, her eyes scanning me with a mixture of awe and relief. "You did it," she said. "Did I?" I asked, unsure of what I had become. She smiled. "You're whole." The days after the integration were a haze. My body felt like mine, yet foreign at the same time, a strange, delicate balance between familiarity and discovery. I avoided mirrors at first, afraid of what I might see. But Harriet, as always, encouraged me to face the changes head-on. "You're still you," she said one morning as we sat in her kitchen, the scent of coffee filling the air. "Whatever that means now, you're still you." Her words were comforting, but they didn't quell the gnawing uncertainty inside me. When I finally worked up the courage to look in the mirror, the face staring back wasn't entirely Alex or entirely Alexis, it was both. My features were softer, more androgynous, with traces of both identities blended seamlessly. Even my voice, when I spoke, carried a new resonance, deeper than Alexis's but gentler than Alex's. "Who am I now?" I whispered to my reflection. Returning to the facility was like walking into a storm. Dr. Larson and his team had been monitoring the timeline since my integration, and their findings weren't encouraging. "It's stable," Larson said, his tone measured. "For now." "For now?" I repeated, my stomach sinking. He nodded, gesturing to the monitors that displayed the timeline, a single thread now, but faint ripples still radiated outward. "The integration worked, but the timeline is still fragile. Your existence is unconventional. It's holding, but it could unravel if you're not careful." "Careful how?" I asked, frustration creeping into my voice. Larson hesitated, his eyes narrowing. "You need to live authentically. Fully. The timeline can't reconcile any more contradictions. If you suppress one part of yourself or deny your new reality, the balance will collapse." The weight of his words pressed down on me like a physical force. I had fought so hard to keep Alex and Alexis separate, and now I had to learn how to live as both. That night, I sat in the facility's empty observation room, staring at the stars through the massive glass window. Harriet found me there, her presence a quiet comfort. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly, sitting beside me. I thought about her question for a long time. "I don't know," I admitted. "I thought integration would give me clarity, but it's just more questions." Harriet nodded, her gaze distant. "That's the thing about being human. We're never as simple as we want to be." Her words lingered with me as I returned home the next day. The apartment felt different now, not just because of the changes in me but because of the choices I'd made to get here. The clothes in the closet, the echoes of Alexis's life, they no longer felt like intrusions. They felt like pieces of a puzzle finally coming together. The first real test of my new identity came unexpectedly. A coworker, Jenna, invited me to a small dinner party at her place, a gathering of friends, nothing formal. Normally, I would have declined, too afraid of the questions my appearance might raise. But something inside me pushed back against that instinct. "Sure," I said, surprising even myself. "I'd love to come." When the night of the party arrived, I stood in front of the mirror, agonizing over what to wear. It wasn't just about clothes, it was about what they represented. Would I present as Alex, Alexis, or something in between? In the end, I chose a simple outfit that straddled the line between masculine and feminine, a fitted blazer over a blouse, paired with jeans and low heels. It felt right, a reflection of the new me. The party was uneventful in the best possible way. Jenna and her friends were warm and welcoming, and no one batted an eye at my appearance. For the first time in what felt like forever, I was just myself. Back at the facility, the team continued to monitor the timeline. Larson still worried about the fragility of the thread, but he admitted there were signs of improvement. "The ripples are diminishing," he said during a briefing. "Your integration seems to be stabilizing things." "But why?" I asked. "Because you're embracing your reality," he said simply. A week passed. Life began to settle into a rhythm, if you could call it that. Every day, I found myself navigating this new version of me, testing the waters of identity and authenticity. The stability of the timeline seemed to depend on my ability to accept myself fully, to live without contradiction. But peace never lasts, does it? It started with a letter. I found it tucked under my apartment door one evening, written on the same stark, white stationery as the note I'd received weeks ago, the one that led me to the warehouse where I first met Alexis. The handwriting was identical, precise yet oddly familiar, like something I'd seen in a dream. "Meet me where it all began. Midnight." My stomach twisted as I read the words. Where it all began. Did they mean the lab? My childhood home? Or something deeper? I didn't have to wonder long. When I turned the envelope over, a single address was scrawled on the back, the facility where the integration had taken place. At midnight, I stood outside the facility, the night air biting at my skin. The building loomed before me, its silhouette stark against the moonlit sky. Every instinct told me to turn back, to ignore the summons and walk away. But I couldn't. The doors opened as I approached, their mechanical hum echoing through the empty halls. The facility was dark, save for a faint glow emanating from the observation room. My footsteps echoed unnervingly as I made my way inside. When I reached the room, I froze. Sitting in the chair by the window, bathed in the soft glow of the monitors, was Alexis. Or was it me? The figure turned, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. She was both familiar and alien, her features sharper than I remembered, her presence more commanding. "You're late," she said, her voice carrying a hint of amusement. I didn't know if I should come, I admitted, stepping cautiously into the room. You didn't really have a choice, she said, standing. You never do. What does that mean? I asked, my voice trembling. She gestured to the monitors, where the timeline flickered faintly, the ripples almost imperceptible now. You've stabilized it, for now. But it's not over. Not over? I repeated, my chest tightening. She stepped closer, her gaze piercing. You think integration was the end of your journey? It was just the beginning. There's more work to be done. What kind of work? She smiled faintly, though it didn't reach her eyes. You've accepted who you are. Now you have to show the world. Her words hit me like a blow. The thought of stepping fully into this new identity, of exposing myself to the judgment and scrutiny of others, it terrified me. I'm not ready, I said, shaking my head. You'll never be ready, she said bluntly. But the timeline doesn't care about your fears. If you don't move forward, it'll collapse again. And this time, there might not be a way to fix it. Over the next few days, I struggled to make sense of what Alexis had said. Her words lingered, an unsettling echo that refused to leave my mind. Harriet noticed my distraction during one of our coffee meetups. What's going on? She asked, her tone soft but insistent. I hesitated, then told her about the letter, the meeting at the facility, and Alexis's warning. She listened without interrupting, her expression unreadable. You've come so far, she said when I finished. But she's right. You can't hide forever. I don't know if I can do it, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Yes, you can, she said firmly. You've already done the hardest part. Now it's time to live. The first step was small. A simple trip to the grocery store, wearing an outfit that blended Alex and Alexis, a skirt paired with a hoodie, sneakers instead of heels. My heart pounded as I walked through the aisles, every glance from a stranger feeling like a spotlight. But no one stared, no one whispered. The next step was harder. A dinner with colleagues, where I introduced myself simply as me, no labels, no explanations. Their reactions varied, some curious, some indifferent, some quietly supportive. Each step built on the last, a gradual progression toward authenticity. And as I began to live openly, the timeline stabilized further. The ripples faded, the thread growing stronger with each passing day. But there were still echoes. Dreams of lives I hadn't lived, fragments of futures that could have been. They didn't feel like warnings anymore, though. They felt like possibilities. I thought I was making progress. The tentative steps I'd taken into the world as my new self, neither Alex nor Alexis but something whole, felt like victories. Harriet encouraged me, and even Dr. Larson's reports showed that the timeline had stabilized significantly. But the peace didn't last. One evening, as I returned from a walk, I found the door to my apartment slightly ajar. My pulse quickened as I stepped inside, scanning the room. Everything looked untouched, no signs of a break-in, but something felt off. On the kitchen counter lay another note, identical in style to the previous ones. The timeline is not as stable as it seems. Meet me at the park bench on 14th Street. Midnight. My heart sank. I didn't want to go. I wanted to ignore it, to pretend that everything was fine. But deep down, I knew the ripples hadn't disappeared entirely. Please subscribe my channel for the next part. And visit my Patreon page for early access.